Prem Sikho Śrī Caitanya Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Śrī Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinatha Shaima Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. Today we're celebrating the most auspicious occasion of the cleansing of Guṇḍicā Marjan. Śrīla Prabhupada explains that actually this temple of Guṇḍicā is not a temple. It's a temple house situated within a beautiful garden about 2 kilometers, 2 miles away on the northeast side of the Jagannath temple. So the first text of this chapter gives a summary of the whole chapter. Shri Guṇḍicā Mandiram Atma Vrindai Samarjayan Kshalanatha Sagara Swachita Vach Chitalam Ujvalam Cha Krishno Pavesh O Payikam Chakara. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu washed and cleansed the Guṇḍicā temple with his devotees and associates. In this way, he made it as cool and bright as his own heart, and thus he made the temple a befitting place for Lord Shri Kṛṣṇa to sit. So the text 2 is a little different from the other invocation texts in the other chapters of Chaitanya Charitamrita. We'll sing this together. Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandra Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandra Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandra Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. So the text we're going to sing today and discuss has the most extensive purport. It goes on for about 4 pages. Because Śrīla Prabhupada explains the esoteric meaning of this pastime according to his spiritual master Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura in the Purport, referring to many of the previous acharyas and their internal realizations of this pastime. So the slok is Eimat puradvāra-āge patha yata sakala śodhila tāhā varṇibe kata eimat puradvāra-āge patha yata sakala śodhila tāhā varṇibe kata eimat puradvāra-āge patha yata sakala śodhila tāhā varṇibe kata. Eimata. In this way, puradvāra of the gateway of the temple, āge in front, patha yata as many avenues, sakala all, śodhila were cleansed, tāhā that, varṇibe who can describe, kata how much. Translation. Outside the gateway of the temple, all the roads were also cleansed, and no one could tell exactly how this was done. We can repeat together. Outside the gateway of the temple, all the roads were also cleansed, and no one could tell exactly how this was done. Purport. In commenting on the cleansing of the Guṇḍicā temple, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura says that Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu, as the world leader, was personally giving instructions on how one should receive Lord Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, within one's cleansed and pacified heart. If one wants to see Kṛṣṇa seated in his heart, he must first cleanse the heart, as prescribed by Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu in his Śikṣāṣṭaka, ceto-darpaṇa-mārjanam. In this age, everyone's heart is especially unclean, as confirmed in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, antaḥ-stho abhadrāṇi. To wash away all dirty things accumulated within the heart, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu advised everyone to chant the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra. The first result will be that the heart is cleansed, ceto-darpaṇa-mārjanam. Similarly, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1.2.17 confirms this statement. Shrinvatam svakata Kṛṣṇa punya shravana kirtana hṛdyantaḥ-stho abhadrāṇi vidunoti suhritsatam. Śrī Kṛṣṇa, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma supersoul in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who relishes his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. If a devotee at all wants to cleanse his heart, he must chant and hear the glories of the Lord, Śrī Kṛṣṇa, Shrinvatam svakata Kṛṣṇa. This is a simple process. Kṛṣṇa himself will help cleanse the heart because he is already seated there. Kṛṣṇa wants to continue living within the heart, and the Lord wants to give directions, but one has to keep his heart as clean as Lord Caitanya Mahāprabhu kept the Guṇḍicā temple. The devotee therefore has to cleanse his heart just as the Lord cleansed the Guṇḍicā temple. In this way one can be pacified and enriched in devotional service. If the heart is filled with straw, grains of sand, weeds, or dust, in other words, anyapilasita purna, one cannot enthrone the Supreme Personality of Godhead there. The heart must be cleansed of all material motives brought about through fruitive work, speculative knowledge, the mystic yoga system, and so many other forms of so-called meditation. The heart must be cleansed without ulterior motive. As Srila Rupa Goswami says, Anya bilasata sunyam, dhyana karmadi anavritam. In other words, there should not be any external motive. One should not attempt material upliftment, understanding the Supreme by speculative knowledge, fruitive activity, severe austerity and penance, and so on. All these activities are against the natural growth of spontaneous love of Godhead. As soon as these are present within the heart should be understood to be unclean and therefore unfit to serve as Krishna's sitting place. We cannot perceive the Lord's presence in our hearts unless our hearts are cleansed. And material desire is explained as a desire to enjoy the material world to its fullest extent. In modern language, this is called economic development. An inordinate desire for economic development is considered to be like straws and grains of sand within the heart. If one is overly engaged in material activity, the heart will always remain disturbed. As stated by Narottam Das Thakur, samsara vishanale diva nishi hiya dvale judaite na kainu upai. This is the second sloka of a very famous sloka that song that Narottam Das Thakur sings. It's Prabhupada's favorite. Bulia, how does it start? Hari Hari Bifale. Yes. In other words, samsara vishale, I'm burning in the poisonous fire of material existence, day and night, and I have no way to get out of this burning existence. In other words, endeavor for material opulence is against the principle of devotional service. Material enjoyment includes activities such as great sacrifices for auspicious activity, charity, austerity, elevation to the higher planetary system, and even living happily within the material world. Modernized material benefits are like the dust of material contamination. When this dust is agitated by the whirlwind of fruitive activity, it overcomes the heart. Thus, the mirror of the heart is covered with dust. There are many desires to perform auspicious and inauspicious activities, but people do not know how life after life they are keeping their hearts unclean. One who cannot give up the desire for fruitive activity is understood to be covered by the dust of material contamination. Karmis generally think that the interaction of fruitive activities can be counteracted by another karma or fruitive activity. This is certainly a mistaken conception. If one is deluded by such a conception, he is cheated by his own activity. Such activities have been compared to an elephant's bathing. An elephant may bathe very thoroughly, but as soon as it comes out of the river, it immediately takes some sand from the land and throws it all over its body. If one suffers due to his past fruitive activities, he cannot counteract his suffering by performing auspicious activities. The sufferings of human society cannot be counteracted by material plans. The only way these sufferings can be mitigated is by Krishna consciousness. When one takes to Krishna consciousness and engages himself in the devotional service of the Lord, beginning with chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord, the cleansing of the heart begins. When the heart is actually cleansed, one can clearly see the Lord sitting there without any disturbance. In Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 9.468, the Lord confirms that He sits within the heart of the pure devotee. Sadhavo hṛdayam mahayam, sadhunam hṛdayam tvaham. This was spoken by the Supreme Lord to Durvasa Muni when he was trying to escape the glaring, fiery effulgence of the Sudarsana chakra when he offended the lotus feet of Maharaj Ambarish. When Durvasa Muni came for relief at the feet of Narayan, Narayan explained to him that I live within the heart of my devotee, and the devotee lives within my heart. And because you are trying to cause disturbance to my devotee, therefore you have caused disturbance to me. Impersonal speculation, monism, merging into the existence of the Supreme, speculative knowledge, mystic yoga, and meditation are all compared to grains of sand. They simply cause irritation to the heart. No one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by such activities, nor do we give the Lord a chance to sit in our hearts peacefully. Rather, the Lord is simply disturbed by them. Sometimes yogis and jnanis in the beginning take to the chanting of the Hare Kṛṣṇa Mahamantra as a way to begin their various practices. But when they falsely think that they have attained release from the bondage of material existence, they give up chanting. They do not consider that the ultimate goal is the form of the Lord or the name of the Lord. Such unfortunate creatures are never favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for they do not know what devotional service is. Lord Kṛṣṇa describes them in the Bhagavad Gita in this way: Tanaham dvishata kruran samsareshu naradaman shipyam ashram ashubham asur ishveva yonishu. Those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. By his practical example, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu has shown us that all the grains of sand must be picked up thoroughly and thrown outside. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu also cleansed the outside of the temple, fearing that the grains of sand would again come within. In this connection, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura explains that even though one may become free from the desire for fruitive activity, sometimes the subtle desire for fruitive activity again comes into being within the heart. One often thinks of conducting business to improve devotional activity, but the contamination is so strong that it may later develop into misunderstanding, described as kutinati, fault-finding, and pratishtha, the desire for name and fame and for high position. Jiva hingsa, envy of other living entities. Nishid achar, accepting things forbidden in the Shastra. Kam, desire for material gain. And puja, hankering for popularity. The word kutinati means duplicity. As an example of pratishtha, one may attempt to imitate Srila Haridas Thakur by living in a solitary place. One's real desire may be for name and fame. In other words, one thinks that fools will accept one to be as good as Haridas Thakur just because one lives in a solitary place. These are all material desires. A neophyte devotee is certain to be attacked by other material desires as well, namely desires for women and money. In this way, the heart is again filled with dirty things and becomes harder and harder, like that of a materialist. Gradually, one desires to become a reputed devotee or an avatar incarnation. One little note here, these different types of contamination, we can see within our society of ISKCON even. Devotees come and they might have some desire within their heart to fulfill by joining the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And then suddenly, after they fulfill their desire, we don't see them anymore. So this is that shiptam. They fall down again. Because in order to remain pure, in order to remain always in the association of devotees, we have to always be concentrating on the hearing and chanting of the glories of the holy name. No other desire than this. The word jiva hingsa, envy of other living entities, actually means stopping the preaching of Krishna consciousness. Preaching work is described as a para-upakar, welfare activity for others. Those who are ignorant of the benefits of devotional service must be educated by preaching. If one stops preaching and simply sits down in a solitary place, he is engaging in material activity. If one desires to make a compromise with the Mayavadis, he is also engaged in material activity. A devotee should never make compromises with non-devotees. So when the temple first opened and we built our guest house, which was the biggest guest house in all of Vrindavan at the time, nowhere was there such a large building. Forget about that now. But in those days, this is the biggest guest house. So there was one Mayavadi group and his guru who wanted to come, and they wanted to rent out the whole guest house. And Prabhupada wouldn't allow it. He said, you put a sign at the front of the temple that says, no Mayavadis allowed. Prabhupada would not compromise. Didn't matter if we had, and in those days, the rooms were 2 rupees for a single room and 6 rupees for a double room. A devotee should never make compromises with non-devotees. By acting as a professional guru, mystic yogi, or miracle man, one may cheat and bluff the general public and gain fame as a wonderful mystic. We had one devotee who was trying to do that. I won't mention his name. He was trying to attract people. He had learned some mystic yoga. He could put water in his ear and it come out of his eye, something like that. So the devotees went to Prabhupada. It was just nonsense. We attract people by chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. All of this is considered to be dust, straw, and grains of sand within the heart. In addition, one should follow the regulative principles and not desire illicit sex, gambling, intoxicants, or meat. To give us practical instructions, Lord Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu cleansed the temple twice. His second cleansing was more thorough. The idea was to throw away all the stumbling blocks on the path of devotional service. He cleansed the temple with firm conviction, as is evident from his using his own personal garments for cleaning. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu wanted to see personally that the temple was thoroughly cleansed to the standard of clean marble. Clean marble gives a cooling effect. Devotional service means attaining peace from all disturbances caused by material contamination. In other words, it is the process by which the mind is cooled. The mind can be peaceful and thoroughly cleansed when one no longer desires anything but devotional service. Even though all dirty things may be cleansed away, sometimes subtle desires remain in the mind for impersonalism, monism, success, and the 4 principles of religious activity, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. All these are like spots on clean cloth. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu also wanted to cleanse all these away. By his practical activities, Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu informed us how to cleanse our hearts. Once the heart is cleansed, we should invite Lord Śrī Krishna to sit down, and we should observe the festival by distributing prasadam and chanting the Hare Kṛṣṇa Maha Mantra. Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu used to teach every devotee by his personal behavior. Everyone who spreads the cult of Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu accepts a similar responsibility. The Lord was personally chastising and praising individuals in the course of the cleansing, and those who are engaged in acharyas must learn from Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu how to train devotees by personal example. The Lord was very pleased with those who could cleanse the temple by taking out undesirable things accumulated within. This is called anartha nivritti, cleansing the heart of all unwanted things. Thus, the cleansing of the Guṇḍicā Mandir was conducted by Śrī Caitanya Mahāprabhu to let us know how the heart should be cleansed and soothed to receive Lord Śrī Krishna and enable him to sit within the heart without disturbance. Om Ajnana Timurandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshushanmiritam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Śrī Caitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantekam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Shatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Arigor Bhaktavrinda Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this very long chapter, 220 some slokas, has many different pastimes described. But Śrīla Prabhupada, when we were having our first Rath Yatra, big Rath Yatra. Of course, the first one was 1967 in San Francisco, because Lord Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra, they were the first deities that Śrīla Prabhupada installed in the Western countries. That's because Lord Jagannath is so merciful to the mlechas. He explains that in Orissa, more than 90% of the people are non-vegetarian, but still Lord Jagannath accepts the offerings and the service of the worshippers in Orissa. So therefore, Śrīla Prabhupada felt that Lord Jagannath, being most merciful to the mlechas, the yavanas, and those outside of the Vedic system, he should be the first to be worshipped in the Western countries. And he initiated this Rath Yatra for that reason. The first Rath Yatra was on just a flatbed lorry, and they put here, here, and here the three murtis. And there was nice procession throughout the city. That was 67. And then by 1970, the procession had become so big and famous that there was huge 3 carts going through Golden Gate Parkway. And Śrīla Prabhupada, the day before, he gave a lecture, his first lecture, about this Guṇḍicā Marjan, and explained its significance, which is very fully explained in this purport. But he explained it according to the time and circumstances, according to the devotees he was speaking to. So Prabhupada explained that what happened was, we know that because the Krishna book had just come out, so the devotees were reading the life of Krishna. Before that, there was very little in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam about how Krishna came to Vrindavan and then left Vrindavan, went to Dwarka, because Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam begins after the Battle of Kurukshetra. It's not until the 10th canto that we hear Krishna's pastimes. So when Prabhupada gave the summary translation of the 10th canto, we were able to read about Krishna's life. So Prabhupada briefly described that when Krishna appeared, he wasn't born from anyone's womb. He appeared with 4 arms, and Devaki became very frightened because by the influence of Yogamaya, she thought that, oh, my brother, he is going to try to kill God. He'll try to kill you. And when he sees you with 4 arms, he will come immediately to kill you. So the influence of Yogamaya was that if Krishna was God, then how was Kamsa going to kill him? But she was seeing him just as her little child. So she begged him, please, you remove your 4 arms. And then Vasudeva, out of fear and the instruction of Krishna, took baby Krishna and placed him within the home of Nanda Maharaj, his brother through marriage. There were 2 different Kshatriya wife and a Vaishya wife from previous generation. So Nanda Maharaj was just like his brother and his very close friend. He hid him there in Nanda Maharaj's home for 11 years. And then the atrocities of Kamsa became so great. And Kamsa, after sending many demons to kill Krishna and Balaram, finally Kamsa decided, now I'm going to bring Krishna here and kill him myself. So he sent Akrura, and Akrura then explained to Nanda Maharaj who Krishna and Balaram actually are. And Nanda Maharaj, because he was so selfless and such a pure devotee, he allowed Akrura to take Krishna and Balaram to Mathura. And Krishna promised he would return. But it took over 100 years for Krishna to come back to Vrindavan. And how did he come back? That is the description of this Rath Yatra. Now in Puri, it's not called Rath Yatra, it's called Guṇḍicā Yatra. Because After Krishna left Vrindavan, he sent Uddhava to console the Brijbasis. He allowed Balaram to go to console the Brijbasis, but he himself did not return for a very long time. And the devotees here in Vrindavan, Mother Yasoda, the cowherd boys, the gopis, their only business was crying for Krishna. They became emaciated. Their clothes were all dirty and unkempt. They had no concern for themselves. They were just waiting, keeping their souls in their bodies so that they would still be here when Krishna fulfilled his promise and came home. And then, finally, they heard word. Because Krishna, even in Mathura, though we can walk to Mathura, it's so easy to go to Mathura, Krishna couldn't come back because Jarasandha and the other envious kings were constantly coming to Mathura to attack. Therefore, for 19 years, Krishna had to stay there in Mathura to protect the town there and the townspeople. And then finally he decided to transfer everyone to Dwarka, and he himself went to Dwarka. There he married 16,108 wives, and still he had many demons to kill. So, finally, there was going to be a solar eclipse. And Krishna sent word, because Krishna and Nanda Maharaj, they were sending messages back and forth the whole time. He invited all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, you come to Kurukshetra. I'm coming there with my brother and sister, we can all meet there. So everyone wanted to go. They just wanted to take everyone to Kurukshetra to see Krishna. But how could all the cows go? There were millions of cows. So Krishna made a plan that the husbands of the gopis, the gopas, they should stay back and take care of the cows. That way the gopis would be able to go without any guardians. So the gopis accompanied Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaj, and all the old oxen, they led the carts, and they took that long ride to Kurukshetra to see Krishna. And there, Krishna could hardly control himself, because when the Brijbasis saw Krishna there in his kingly attire, surrounded by ministers and secretaries and chariots and soldiers, all of his wives, all of his family members, the Pandavas, the great sages, they were completely stunned. And Radharani, she expressed that you're the same Krishna, and I'm the same Radha, but we're meeting now in a different place. It's not the same. I want to take you back to Vrindavan, where we met in the jungles, in the groves, in the bushes. I want to be with you there in Vrindavan. So the devotees who had been waiting so long for Krishna to return to Vrindavan, they implored Krishna, you please come back now. And Krishna explained to them, see, Krishna also, he wanted to be with the Brijbasis. He wanted to be with Mother Yasoda, Nanda Maharaj, and all of the gopis. So he arranged that the gopis stay in a very secluded place. They all stayed for 3 months in Kurukshetra to be with Krishna. And that way Krishna was able to see his mother and father every day. And at night, because the gopis were kept in a secluded place, no one knew where they were staying, and there were no guardians to watch where they were and what they were doing. So Krishna was then able to meet with them every night in Kurukshetra and have intimate pastimes with them. Finally, it was time for Krishna to return to Dwarka. And when Vasudeva and Devaki saw the love that Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda had for Krishna and Balaram, they frankly admitted that you are the real mother and father of Krishna and Balaram. We are just the official mother and father. So then Uddhava, Balaram, and others, they asked Vasudeva and Devaki, if they are the real parents, You see how selfless Nanda Maharaj was. As soon as there was any difficulty on your side, he immediately sent Krishna and Balaram to help you. You see how Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda have been suffering all these years, and you've never once let Krishna come to see them. Please allow Krishna to come back to Vrindavan. So Vasudeva, he was put in a very uncomfortable, embarrassing situation. How selfish he had been. They would never let Krishna go see. They were afraid that Krishna would never come back because the love of the Brijbasis was so great that Krishna would never be able to leave them again. That was why they never let Krishna come back to Vrindavan. But now he was confronted. So he gave permission that yes, sometimes now Krishna can come back to and see his real parents and his loved ones there in Vrindavan. So now Krishna had permission, but he still had a few more demons to kill. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you know, as soon as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, the first thing he decided to do was go to Vrindavan. It was his first desire, and he was tricked by Nityananda Prabhu. He took him along the bank of the Ganga because Mahaprabhu was in such ecstasy, he didn't even realize where he was. He thought he was going to Vrindavan. Meanwhile, Nityananda Prabhu took him to Advaitacharya's house to meet his mother again. And not only that, second time he wanted to go, and so many crowds came along with him that the Shah, Hussain Shah, he realized that this mendicant, he must be a prophet, because all these people are following him. He's not giving them anything, and still they're following him. So at that time, Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, who had been writing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, asking for his shelter, they warned Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that this is not the way to go to Vrindavan. You should go alone, not with such a big crowd. It will cause disturbance in Mathura. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu realized that, and he only went as far as Kanai Natashala. And then secretly, he returned back to Jagannath Puri. And from there, very secretly, he left in the middle of the night with just Balabhadra. And finally was able to go to Vrindavan. So even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Śrī Krishna, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, found it very difficult to return to Vrindavan, although it was his desire. He came here, but he was experiencing such ecstatic symptoms that Balabhadra Bhattacharya, he found some way to extract Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from Vrindavan and bring him back to Puri. So now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was back in Puri after he had spent about 6 years traveling and then another 2 years. And the devotees from Bengal, they wanted to come see him. And Mahaprabhu said that they should come every year. For 18 years, they came every year to engage in the Guṇḍicā Marjan, Rath Yatra, and then stay for because we know the next Purnima, that's the beginning of Chaturmas, when it's very difficult to travel. So there were no buses, there were no trains. The devotees had to walk from Bengal to come and see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then they stayed the whole 4 months of Chaturmas. So this is the first thing that they did after they were settled in their residences, took prasadam. They all went with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for Guṇḍicā Marjan. Now, when Mahaprabhu came back from his South India tour, Maharaj Prataparudra, he implored Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Ramananda Roy, and all of the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, please allow me to meet and get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu refused. He said that there can be so much milk in a pot. If you put 1 drop of liquor, the whole pot is contaminated. So although Maharaj Prataparudra was a great devotee and wanted so much to get the shelter of Mahaprabhu, because he had the name King, that was the drop of liquor. And Mahaprabhu said that I'll be deprecated, I'll be slandered, I'll be condemned if I go to meet a king. So Ramananda Roy, he found some way, he took the cloth of Mahaprabhu, that cloth was given, and then finally Mahaprabhu said, he quoted one sloka saying that the son is non-different from the father. And that was spoken by Balaram when he killed Romaharshana and he installed Sutta Goswami. He said, the son is the same as the father. So he said, have Prataprudra bring his son here, and I will give him my mercy. So in that way, Maharaj Prataprudra was able to get the mercy because his son became a regular, intimate associate of the Supreme Lord. So when Mahaprabhu, who understood the internal reason for this Ratha Yatra, he decided that he wanted to clean Guṇḍicā Marjan. Now Guṇḍicā, that was the name of the wife of Indradumna Maharaj, who caused the appearance of Sri Jagannath Baladev and Subhadra. So this garden house or temple was named after the wife of Indradumna Maharaj. And it's a beautiful temple. It's not that big, 400 feet by 450 feet, the whole area. And the temple itself, where the deities are seated, just 40 by 45 feet. And all around, there are residential places for the pujaris and the servants. There are many, many small temples of the different Lakshmi Devis. There's the kitchen, because everything that goes on in the big temple, when Lord Jagannath and Baladev and Subhadra come to Guṇḍicā, all of their offerings still have to be given. All of the servants still have to be there. So everything is transported there for 8 days. And when Krishna is not there, how many of you have gone into the Guṇḍicā Mandir? You're all very, very fortunate. So I also had the opportunity. I spent a whole day there, and when Lord Jagannath isn't there, you can go into the kitchen, you can see how everything is packed up, how the cooking is done. Everything is there to examine. So, because it had been 1 year, there was so much to clean. There was dhul, there was trina, and there was kankar. That means the dust, and the straws, and the weeds, and the grasses, and there was little pieces of sand. So this purport describes, because Lord Chaitanya, when he had this desire, he called Kashi Mishra and the Padachi, his name was Tulsidas, the superintendent of Jagannath Temple. He said, I want to clean Guṇḍicā Mandir. And the superintendent said, well, that's not really for you to do, but if you want to do it, we will give you all facility. I will arrange 100 brooms. I will arrange 100 water pots, because they had no squeegees and water hoses in those days. The water had to come in water pots from a big lake there. So he arranged all of that, and Lord Chaitanya went with all of his hundreds of associates, and first he had them sweep. And each person, he checked each one of their piles of dhul, trina, and kankar. And whoever was bigger, he praised them. And he watched how everyone was working. And if someone was doing a very good job, he would praise them in front of the others and say, now you teach the others to do like you're doing. And that would embarrass the others and cause them to work harder. And Mahaprabhu himself, he was engaged in the cleaning. So the first time they swept and they took all of the dirt and they put it outside of the temple. That wasn't enough. Then he had them sweep a second time. And then the finest grains of sand. And that is all these different things that we have to clean from our heart. That's being described here by Śrīla Prabhupada in this purport. All of these material desires, all of these anartha nivrittis, these contaminations that come in the heart, because we're in the material atmosphere. So even when we clean once, a second time we have to clean to make sure that even the smallest grains of sand, of contamination, are kicked out of our heart. So then came the water. Everyone was waiting with their pots of water. And the first thing they cleaned was the ceiling. They threw it up on the ceiling, and then by throwing it on the ceiling, it came down onto the walls and onto the floor. And Mahaprabhu himself used his own cloth to wipe the place of the Singhasan, and his own cloth he was using. He didn't have any mop cloth, nothing like that. You don't read about cloths, you just read about brooms and water. And they had the water all in the temple room, and then they opened up the outlets, and all the water came rushing out, and they were sweeping all that water. And even, as in this sloka, even around the outside, the outer walls, all of those pathways were cleaned, just to be sure that no dirt would enter back in. And outside of the entrance of the temple is a Nrsimhadev temple. On Nrsimha Chaturdasi, there's a big festival there. So they cleaned that very nicely. And then, as described here by Prabhupada, that devotional activities include chanting the holy name and taking prasadam. So after there was thorough cleansing of the temple, that means complete cleansing of the heart of all the devotees. During that time also, the devotees very secretly, they would throw water on the Lord's feet, and then they would secretly take that water and share it amongst themselves without the Lord seeing it. But one devotee from Bengal, he very presumptuously came and directly washed the lotus feet of the Lord and drank that water all himself. And the Lord became very angry, and he called Śrūpa Damodar, because Śrūpa Damodar came with him from Navadvip. He said, look at your Gaudiya Vaishnava, what he's done. Such a great offense. And this is a very important thing that we should all understand, this etiquette, maryada, that when we're in front of their lordships, we should not offer obeisances to others, just as we should not give charity to others. All these things are mentioned by Rupa Goswami, the 32, and then the 32 additional, and then the more additional. All these offenses are there. So here Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, acting as a menial servant to the Lord, cleaning the Lord's temple, then someone came and honored him. So Śrūpa Damodar grabbed him by the neck, dragged him out of the temple, and threw him out of the gate. Just as it was just a pastime. Of course, he was forgiven afterwards. But this was to show us that in our devotional service, even the Supreme Lord becomes a menial servant to the Lord. The Lord in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, pretending to be a devotee. So Prabhupada then goes on to explain that we should not offer worship in front of the deities. Before it used to be like that. Now the system has changed somewhat. But that's according to time and circumstance. So then after the cleaning was completed, then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began ecstatic kirtan with all of his devotees. And because everyone's heart had been so thoroughly cleansed, and Mahaprabhu was exhibiting all of the ecstatic symptoms, dancing in association with his devotees. And then they bathed, and then they all sat down, and the superintendent, Tulsidas, he arranged for prasadam for 500 devotees. And Mahaprabhu personally, he knew, because he's in everyone's heart, he knew what prasadam everybody liked. And he would personally distribute that prasadam to each one of the devotees. And he told the devotees that, for myself, I just want some lafra. Lafra it's a simple, very simple sabji we used to make for Prabhupada also. Pishima, she taught me how to make it. You take sak and you mix in all these, it's like a mixed vegetable, a little wet. And it's very nice to take with rice. But it's what the poor people eat. So he didn't want all of the fancy cakes and sweets and all of the things that are made specifically for Jagannath in his Chapan Bhog. He just wanted some lafra and rice. But Nityananda Prabhu, Swarup Damodar, they would not accept that. And they forcibly put these things on Mahaprabhu's plate. He became angry, but he was afraid. Who was it? Damodar Pandit. Damodar Pandit. He put these things on Mahaprabhu's plate. Or was it Jagadananda? Jagadananda, he did it. Now we know that Jagadananda is Satyabhama in Chaitanya Leela. So Jagadananda, Mahaprabhu was always afraid that he would get angry at him. So just so that Jagadananda would not get angry at him, he took the prasadam. And then afterwards, when everyone had taken so much nice prasadam, then Govinda, he took the remnants. And Haridas Thakur, although Mahaprabhu wanted him to sit with all of the devotees, due to his humility, he said, I will take after. So a portion of that prasadam was given to Haridas Thakur, a portion was given to all the devotees, and then finally Govinda, he sat in a room and took whatever was left. And then Mahaprabhu rested, they went to their homes, and they prepared for the next day, which was going to be Rath Yatra. So this Guṇḍicā Marjan, it's very important. Are we doing the cleansing today of the temple? On the altar. They didn't do the whole temple. Normally we do the whole temple cleansing, and everyone takes part, but they did the Maha cleaning within the Lord's altar. So this Guṇḍicā Marjan, that's for our internal and external purification, because now we go back to the Leela of Kṛṣṇa. And Prabhupada explains that now that Vasudeva and Devaki have given permission that yes, Kṛṣṇa can come once in a while to Vrindavan. So now the devotees, the Brijbasis, they're returning to Vrindavan without Kṛṣṇa. And they're going to prepare for Kṛṣṇa to return. So finally, Kṛṣṇa does return. After he kills the last two demons, that's Dantavakra and his brother Vidurata, then he crosses the Jamuna River and he comes back to Vrindavan. And this Rath Yatra is the return of Kṛṣṇa from Kurukshetra to Vrindavan. And that is from his beautiful temple in Puri. He alights his carts and he comes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu leading the kirtan, sometimes in front, sometimes behind. They bring Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra to the Guṇḍicā Mandir, which is the replica of beautiful Vrindavan. And he stays there for 1 week. And then Lakshmi Devi, she becomes angry that after this 15 days of Anasavara, when he was all alone with Lakshmi that whole time, he asked to take a ride. He goes out for a ride and he doesn't come back for a week. So she sends her servants to chastise the servants of Jagannath that they must bring him back home. And that is the Hera Panchami. We'll be observing that after 1 week, after the Rath Yatra. And there are many, many different beautiful pastimes that we'll be observing. And then there's the return cart, the return Rath Yatra of when Kṛṣṇa does leave Guṇḍicā and returns to the temple of Jagannath. So all of these pastimes we'll be relishing this week. And we're so fortunate because we have Jagannath in Vrindavan always, secretly. Most people don't even know that we have a Jagannath temple here. That's how secret it is. But we're all invited now, starting today with the Guṇḍicā Marjan. And then we'll be having the wonderful Jagannath Rath Yatra tomorrow in Mathura. And then for 1 week, Lord Jagannath will be staying at what place? He'll be staying, he won't come directly back to the temple this year. Where? At the yes, Lord Jagannath will be staying at our Rukmini Bihar temple so that all the devotees can more easily take darshan of him. So you're all invited to take part in these auspicious activities starting from tomorrow Rath Yatra. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Jai. Yes.
Still we see there are many Mayavadis are coming here.
They're coming for darshan, but they're not coming to stay. They wanted to take over the whole guest house. Anyone's allowed for darshan. The Muslims come, the Sikhs come, everybody comes. The Mlechas come. Prabhupada's so merciful. He's even merciful to the Mayavadis. Even at the grand opening, Prabhupada invited the Mayavadi sannyasis to come for the to sit with him and watch the play. So yes, they're allowed to visit. Okay. They wanted to have discourses here. They wanted to have all the people come here and have discourses, and Prabhupada wouldn't allow that.
Mataji, only chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa and taking prasadam, it is enough for to clean heart. Chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa and taking prasadam, it is only two way by which we can clean our heart.
No, there are 9 different processes, but here is described in this particular lila, the cleansing of the temple, and then the chanting of Hare Kṛṣṇa and the taking of prasadam together. So these are the recommended processes. And according to the sloka that's being quoted by Śrīla Prabhupada, Shrinvatam svakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana. So these are the recommended processes. Śrī Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who relishes his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. So these are the recommended processes from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Verse 17. Shrinvatam svakata Krishna.
Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Hare Kṛṣṇa Mataji. It is related to the Mayavadi, the purport in the Śrīla Prabhupada's.
Yes.
In Vrindavan there is a very famous person who chants the name of Radha most of the time. But I have seen many ISKCON leaders going to him and paying obeisances, taking instructions from him. And at the same time, I have seen one of his video, he's worshipping Ramakrishna Paramhamsa. So, and he is the greatest Mayavadi, Prabhupada says, about Ramakrishna Paramhamsa.
Śrīla Prabhupada forbade us to go outside. So if anyone is doing that, they're disobeying Śrīla Prabhupada. He said if you're not happy with the discourses, the lectures in our temple, then you give the lectures. But he forbade us to hear from outside. So that means that these devotees who are going outside, they're blatantly disobeying Śrīla Prabhupada. That's all there is to it. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Mataji.
Yes. There's no gray area. It's black or white. Either you obey Śrīla Prabhupada or you disobey Śrīla Prabhupada. He said we should not go outside. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare Kṛṣṇa.
Hare Kṛṣṇa. Turn it on. Is it on? Can you hear me? It's on? Okay, sorry. You mentioned about worshipping in front of the deities. So
Yes.
I'm understanding that's why the deities' curtains are closed when we worship Tulsi Maharani.
Yes, that's right.
So my question is it all right to water Tulsi in front of the deities?
That's not formal worship.
It's okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Hare Kṛṣṇa. Jai. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada.